Hello, I am in Lincoln Park, standing in front of Cafe Brower, here right over next to the zoo. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon, and today we're going to be talking about architectural photography. And there's a couple of key things you want to think about whenever you're setting up for this. The first one is, based on where you're going to be photographing, you want to make sure that your building, the subject, as you can see, Cafe Brower, is fully lit. So this can be in the middle of the afternoon if you'd like, or you'll get some really nice, sweet looking light if you wait until dusk. Now, I'm here in Lincoln Park because I have another shoot this evening at 5, so I'm here a little bit earlier than I need to, but I also want you guys to know that this is totally possible regardless of the time of day. Under one circumstance, you want to make sure that the building that you're photographing is not backlit by the sun. So all of the buildings that I'm looking at on the other side here are really dark and silhouetted, and they don't have nearly the same amount of illuminance as Cafe Brower here, where I'm about to be photographing. Now, I'm always going to use a tripod for this, and I'm going to want to spend a little bit of time walking around the building to figure out where the best shot is. If you can hear that, there is a car going by with some blasting music. So I'm standing in an oblique from Cafe Brower, so I have that really nice corner there on the edge of the building, and that gives me a little bit of the side and a little bit of the front of the building. I want to capture that neon and a lot of the opulence of this gorgeous Lincoln Park historic landmark. So that's one thing that I'm looking for. The other thing that I'm looking for is I want to make sure that I've leveled out my camera. My tripod is totally stable even on a windy day like today. And as you'll see in the viewfinder here shortly, I want to make sure it's level so that my verticals that I'm seeing in my viewfinder line up with the verticals that you see on the building. So I don't want it to be super tilted from one side to another. The other thing I'm going to double check in my setup is, because I know I'm photographing on a tripod, I can keep that ISO really low. The next thing I want to do is close down my aperture because I want total sharpness. I want a really nice, sharp image. Depth of field is great, but with architecture, we want the whole thing to have tack sharp focus. So I'm going to show you the back of my camera here in just a second, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so now you're seeing the back of my camera, and we've switched into live view mode. And this is actually a really helpful tool for photographing architecture because it allows me to see all of my framing of my building, and it's giving me the grid for the rule of thirds, so I can very carefully make sure that the verticals of my building line up really nicely with the verticals on the back of my camera. Now, if you're shooting with one of our kit lenses like the 18 to 55 millimeter, you're going to get a little bit of barrel distortion, which is exactly my case photographing with my own wide angle lens. So when I'm photographing architecture, I'm always going to zoom out just a little bit more than what I think I need as far as my framing, and that will allow me the space to crop that out in post as I'm editing, and that's going to give me the opportunity to have really great straight vertical lines. So if you're in doubt, or if you just can't back up far enough from your building, shoot a little bit wider than what you need, because in the edit we'll be able to crop it. I want to make sure that my lens is set to manual focus instead of autofocus. Putting your lens in manual focus is going to give you 100% manual control over the focus as we're getting really, really close to the details here. So I'm going to hit my magnifying glass, which might look like your plus sign, and zoom in as much as I possibly can. For me, that's times 10. And I can pick an object like this light post and make sure that I get that in really sharp focus. Great. Now I can rest assured that I have this image in focus. I'm going to get out of my live view mode and just double check through the viewfinder. Looks good. I'm ready to take a picture. And I will do this a couple more times, refocus a bit until I am super, super secure in the focus on my architecture because I want that to be tack sharp. So again, I'm using my magnifying glass with my lens in manual focus, picking an object or an area where we have a lot of contrast, throwing it out of focus and slowly bringing it back into focus, getting out of live view mode, and then hitting that shutter button. And this is going to be great. So again, I'm refocusing because the wind is shifting. My tripod might not be super duper steady, and I want to make sure that I'm getting this even. I'm photographing a bit wider than what I need to on my image here so that I have the space to crop in and ensure that all of those verticals are straight, which is great to do if you're shooting on a very wide angle lens. And I'm zooming in to make sure that the information there in the middle of the building is 100% in focus. All right, so in short, that is what you want to look for when you're photographing architecture. Even in the short course of me doing this demonstration, between about 3:30 and 4 p.m., the light has shifted dramatically, but I know that my building was lit really, really nicely. And then Ryan is adjusting the camera so you can see what it looks like if your building is backlit, which is the building that I am directly facing as I'm speaking to you. That is the lighting you want to avoid at all costs when photographing architecture. So that's the number one thing to look for. The second thing is how to set up your camera, finding that perfect spot to stand that's going to make that building look really, really great. And in the editing demo, I'm going to show you a few other examples of that precise question. And I hope that this helps as you start into your next projects.